Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. This is going to be quite an interesting video because I'll be talking about a new Z trick that has been only recently brought up. And the reason I think it is interesting is because most people, including myself at first, thought that this trick was extremely useless. But thanks to one of my friends that also plays Zed, he actually told me why this trick can be useful. And after trying it out myself, I found out that this can be actually very strong. So first I want to give credit where credit is due. So big shout out to Lenish because he's the one that actually posted this video on Reddit discovering this new trick. So I'm sure by now all of you are wondering what exactly it is I'm talking about. Well, let's dive into an example showing it off. So the whole point of this trick is to throw your Q first and then throw your W right after, as you see in this example right here. But let's take a look at it once again from a different kind of view. Maybe it'll be easier to notice exactly how it happens. Let's take a look at that example one more time, but in slower motion. So the Q from Zed comes out much earlier than the shadow, but it still comes out of the shadow as soon as it possibly can. Now the concept of this trick is very similar to how you can also use his W followed by a Z, which is a very common Zed tactic. As you see here as well, the E from Zed comes out first, and then it comes out from the shadow a little bit later, but also as soon as it possibly can from the shadow. The only difference here is the fact that you use your W first and then the E right after, but in the other trick, you use the Q first and then the W. Now the big question I'm sure is, why exactly is this trick even useful? I mean, it just really seems like a cool little gimmick that doesn't really serve any purpose. Well, the whole point of this trick is to simply catch your opponent off guard, because at first, all they'll be seeing is one Q flying from Zed. Usually a lot of people won't react or get scared too much from just a single Q flying at them, but if you know it's gonna hit, you can then throw out your W and ensure the double Q almost instantly, as you saw in the example I showed earlier. But on top of catching them off guard in that sense, you can also make the Q seem like it's almost one very long Q as it goes in a straight line. So this example that I showed earlier should now make much more sense to you. And if we slow it down, it becomes very obvious that two Qs hit the Zed, I get the extra energy back from that, and it almost looks like as if it's one very long Q. All aspects that can simply catch your opponent off guard. And you can combine this with different variations, like throwing the W behind you as well. Let's take a look at a couple of comparisons by using this trick and not using this trick and doing it the old-fashioned way. So the most basic way to harass your opponent with your W and Q now is to simply first throw out your W and then throw out your Q. But this is much slower, gives your opponents more time to react, and it's a bit harder to confirm that the Q will hit. Or another very common way to harass currently is to do the same concept, but first use your E with your W for the slow and then fire your Q, which also gives more time for your opponent to react. But let's look at the exact same abilities but used in the new trick sequence and check out how much more damage is done and how much faster and more unexpected it is. But let's take a look at that in slower motion to see exactly what's happening. So I throw out the Q and then the W, which also ends up throwing out the Q, giving my opponent very little time to react nor even know that two Qs are coming at him, and also an E ability from the shadows to top it all off. But the last really cool thing I want to mention regarding this trick is that you can also end up throwing out 4 Qs within the lifespan of one shadow from your W while only having 25% CDR or higher. And without this trick and using the standard WQ harass combo, you need 35% or higher CDR to be able to throw out the Q twice from the same shadow. So let's take a look at that right here. You see at the bottom I have only 30% CDR. I use the QW trick here to hit the Zed with both of them. And I'm still able to fire out another Q for myself and the shadow hitting the Zed once again within the same lifespan of the shadow. And once again, here's another example of me utilizing this trick within an actual game. Check out this really high burst on this Nocturne almost unexpectedly. A pretty cool example of him probably not expecting to take too much damage from just one Q, but suddenly he takes 2 to the face with my E and my auto attack. So the last thing I want to mention is the fact that I'm not entirely sure if this is intended to work like this. Now it might be considered a bug by Riot, though I'm not 100% sure. But I really think this is a cool thing to do, and I hope that Riot doesn't see this as a bug and maybe leaves it as a mechanic, because it isn't very easy to pull off. And you are kind of going all in thinking that you'll be able to hit both Qs, and if you miss it, you're going to be missing quite a bit of damage and energy. In my opinion, it isn't game breaking whatsoever, but it really is just a cool mechanic that you can use on your opponents to catch them off guard, which is what assassins should be doing in the first place. And the concept of this trick is extremely similar to how you can throw out your W with your E, and the E still comes off on Zed first before it does on the shadow. Much like here how the Q flies from Zed first and then the shadow. But that is about it for this video, guys. That is the new trick that was discovered by Lenish, but I decided to kind of really dissect it and give it a bit more thought and really see if this is a good trick or not. And also shout outs to Dreamcasper for also giving me a bit more information as to why this trick can really be useful. If you guys enjoyed this video, found it useful or informative, definitely help me by throwing in a like, share with your friends, subscribe to my channel if you have not yet, and also please check out my other videos. But I thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all for the next video. Peace!